Hey guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, so one of the debates we have sometimes in my comment section is if orchids will bloom the same after you purchase them, let's say next season or the season after that. There seems to be a concern that the orchids we buy are actually pumped with all sorts of hormones, and when we get them home, they experience a sort of a fall down. Well, I'll give you my 2 cents on that. I don't believe it is the case, or at least it's not always the case, and I have some examples to show you. Okay, let's take the Phalaenopsis orchids, which are actually lacking from my collection now, but I used to have a lot of them, and for quite a long time, 6 years or something like that. So I'll give you an example of my Sogo Euclidean. I'll show you images, I don't have it right now. I actually got it by mistake from somebody who was moving out, and she left it with me, and when I got it, it was recently purchased and it had 2 flower spikes and about 5 or 6 flowers per flower spike. So I cared for it for 1 season and the results are as follows. You can see on the screen right now. I actually got 2 flower spikes as well, and they were full of buds, 6 plus. I think they had 10 plus flowers on a flower spike. Of course, genetics of the orchid will contribute to this. If your orchid is not supposed to bloom that much, it will not bloom that much, no matter what you do. But if the genetic lets it, it will bloom to its full potential with good care, but we'll get to that by the end of this video. So in this case, it actually bloomed better than when I purchased it, and it's not the only Phalaenopsis that I had doing that. I had quite a few displaying this, and at some point in my early videos I did mention it, or I made a video about how to get the best blooms even better than when you purchase them. Okay, the next orchids we kind of have problems with are the Sympodium orchids, particularly Oncidium hybrids. When we purchase them, they're in bloom, they have huge pseudobulbs. When we get them home, the next pseudobulbs might be quite smaller, the bloom spike, if there is any bloom spike, will be smaller, less flowers, and so on. So we kind of assume that orchid was pumped with hormones and fertilizers. Well, it's not always the case, and I have some examples. Now here is what's left of my Oncidium cherry baby. I actually divided it. So when I purchased it, it did have a beautiful bloom spike. It also had humongous pseudobulbs. The next pseudobulb it created is considerably smaller. However, the next pseudobulb is quite larger than the previous one, and this one actually bloomed and it created a beautiful flower spike. The previous pseudobulb did not bloom quite at all, and I'm betting that if I wouldn't have divided it and placed it in water and move out and all of that, it would have created bigger and bigger pseudobulbs and of course bigger and bigger flower spikes. And this is a store-purchased orchid. Most probably it was created in a mass production greenhouse, commercial greenhouse, and I'm sure it was pumped with some stuff. However, this doesn't mean that in my environment it will not perform as great. Given time and care, I think it will actually perform as good, if not better, than when I received it. And right now it's gonna take a while for this one to bounce back because, yes, that's a different story. However, in the time that I had it, I did manage to bring it to a close to initial level. Let's call it like that. Now, I will give it, I'm pretty sure these orchids that we buy from the stores are actually helped into blooming or into faster growth somehow. How they're helped, I'm not sure. It might be hormones, it might just be a lot of fertilizer. Because let me tell you what these orchids that performed well for me had in common. Let's get back to Phalaenopsis orchids. As I was saying, I had them for a lot of years before I started YouTube, but I was never very keen on how to grow them. I was just purchasing a store fertilizer. I didn't even know what it was supposed to do, but it was intended for orchids. And I fertilized regularly like my life depended on it. And what do you know? Actually, Phalaenopsis orchids are heavy feeders. The problem with those fertilizers were that they didn't really have trace elements, but they had good quantities of macronutrients. And the orchids responded amazing to that. So for the period of time in which I used the store-purchased fertilizer, the Phalaenopsis did awesome. Now, Phalaenopsis are an easy orchid to grow. If they don't have too many micronutrients, it's not gonna be necessarily the end of the world. Maybe in a few years you will see some deficiencies and stuff like that. I'll give it, it's not the best thing. Also, they have calcium and magnesium, and if you use tap water, you are more likely to overdo it. Depends on your tap water. However, I lucked out and had the perfect balance, and my Phalaenopsis did amazing with that store-purchased fertilizer. Now, what happened was at some point I started to try out other fertilizers, and I purchased the Orchid Focus fertilizer. I think I have 1 bottle left. This is it. I didn't use it for the longest time, although I still have something inside. I don't like this fertilizer. Look at the concentrations. So we have nitrogen 1 0.8, phosphorus 1.2, and potassium 2.1, and of course some trace elements. What attracted me to this one was the trace elements, of course. Now, if you look at other fertilizers, you will see these quantities are much higher than this. For the period of time in which I used this fertilizer and actually noticed it on my Phalaenopsis orchids, which are heavy feeders again, they declined. They declined badly. They didn't flower all that well because this was not enough for them. And it took a year and a half or something like that for me to realize this is a weak fertilizer. Now, of course, I could use a bigger quantity. The problem is, well, it's not economical for one, and I have a lot of orchids, but second, if I used a bigger quantity, let's say 5 times more than what I should use here, I would pretty much overdo it with the trace elements, particularly with the calcium, particularly that I'm using tap water. So the problem is not just use a big quantity of this thing and it will work. Nope, it's the ratio. If you mess around with the quantity, you're gonna mess around with the ratio of the other elements, and the trace elements are actually in good quantities. My problems are the macronutrients, the NPK right here. So using this did not give me the results that a normal store purchase fertilizer gave me. In recent times, I actually used the Schroeder fertilizer and things started to bounce back slowly but surely, because again, they take a while to bounce back. And this was actually grown with the not Orchid Focus, the Schroeder fertilizer. I ran out of it a while ago, but there is a link and there is a difference. So here is my own personal conclusion. It is definitely not a rule that store-purchased orchids will not perform as great in your environment. And I have my Phalaenopsis to show, and I have my Oncidiums to show. And these are widely foundable in stores. If they performed well and actually better than when I purchased them, there is no reason to think that we cannot grow them to their full potential. However, I think the difference is fertilizer. You can obviously keep an orchid without fertilizer, but the results might not be as expected. Maybe in the first year you will not notice a difference because they do store some nutrients and they use those nutrients until they deplete. However, if you do use fertilizer, and a good fertilizer actually, you will have the possibility to bring them to their full potential. Of course, other factors are at play here as well. When you repot them, do you set them back? Do you massacre the root system? Are they sick? Is your environment okay? But if you get all of these correct, and you actually care for them properly and fertilize regularly, most probably you'll get awesome results. So I don't really think that orchids cannot be brought to the same level as when you purchase them. Now, fertilizer is indeed an elusive subject, and you'll see what I mean when I move out and when I'm gonna get a new fertilizer and so on. I'm gonna make a whole debate on fertilizers. Again, just my 2 cents on how I think about things, but you'll see then. For now, I think fertilizer is actually the key to making your orchids grow to their full potential, and of course the proper care and proper environment. Alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. Hope you found it interesting. If you'd like to see other orchid videos from me, simply subscribe to my channel. I post on a daily basis. Also, feel free to leave me comments, suggestions, or whatever you want to share with me in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you. If you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, where you'll find care sheets, identification sheets, and also you can talk to us in the forum section. And on the right side of your screen, you can click to watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye!